This is Abraham Shakespeare, a man living a very humble life who'd go on to win a $30 million lottery. His story began as a tale of luck and dreams coming true, but quickly turned into a nightmare of deception, betrayal, and ultimately murder. Born on April 24, 1966 in Florida, Shakespeare came from very humble beginnings. With a limited education and difficulty reading and writing, he worked various manual labor jobs, including as a truck driver and cleaner at a barber shop. Despite his struggles, he was known as a quiet, kind, and generous man. Those who knew him described him as a simple, good-hearted, and trusting person, always willing to help others. However, his trusting nature would later make him vulnerable to those who sought to take advantage of him. In 2006, Abraham Shakespeare's life changed forever. While traveling to Miami with a co-worker, they stopped at a convenience store in Frostproof, Florida. Shakespeare asked his co-worker, who was going inside for drinks and cigarettes, to buy him 2 lottery tickets. One of those tickets turned out to be the winning jackpot. He had just won $30 million. Despite his incredible luck, Shakespeare remained calm about the win. Of course, he was excited to finally afford things he never could before. After taxes, he took home a one-time lump sum payment of $17 million. Abraham did some nice things for himself. He bought a $1.1 million house in a gated community in Florida and some nice cars. Question: what are the first 3 things you'd buy if you won the lottery? Unfortunately, trouble followed almost immediately after that. People started asking him for money, including friends, family, and even strangers. Being a generous man, Shakespeare willingly gave away large amounts. He couldn't seem to say no. He even loaned his old boss at the barbershop $63,000. But soon, people took advantage of his kindness, and his problems were only just beginning. Abraham Shakespeare also quickly became the target of multiple lawsuits, mostly from people who claimed he owed them money or had wronged them. One major lawsuit came from his former co-worker, Gary McMullen, who alleged that they had purchased the winning ticket together, but Shakespeare had kept all the winnings. However, this claim was later dismissed. Another lawsuit was filed by James Odom, a former friend, who insisted he had helped Shakespeare obtain the ticket and was entitled to a share of the prize. This case was also thrown out. Another dispute involved Michael Ford, who demanded at least $1 million from Shakespeare, accusing him of stealing lottery tickets from his wallet. Shakespeare refused to pay, and Ford took him to court. However, the jury did not believe Ford's story, and Shakespeare won the case. By 2008, Abraham had reached his breaking point. The constant pressure from people begging for money had taken a heavy toll on him. What should have been a life-changing blessing had turned into an overwhelming burden, leaving him feeling isolated and betrayed.
Do you get tired of people asking you for money all the time, Abe? Give me your opinion on it.
I've been tired a year ago.
You just ready to start living your life, huh?
They don't take no for an ounce or so. I just let them keep on and keep on acting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sleeping on the video camera. So where do you want to go to?
It don't matter to me. I'm not a picky person.
California? You want a foreign country?
But really?
Cozumel.
But really?
Yeah. Well, how do you like are you gonna miss your home?
Yep, I miss it, but life goes on.
That video was recorded by a woman called Dee Dee Moore. Abraham met Dee Dee in 2008. Dee Dee owned a nursing staffing agency and claimed to be a financial advisor. She told Shakespeare that she wanted to write a book about his life and offered to help him manage his newfound wealth. Gaining his trust, Moore launched a business under his name, Abraham LLC, and convinced him to transfer his assets to her, claiming she could protect him from the constant requests for money. However, instead of helping, Moore drained his accounts, withdrawing over $1 million, taking ownership of his home, and gaining complete control over his finances. Over time, she isolated him from everyone until no one saw or heard from Shakespeare anymore. Friends and family began to grow suspicious when they realized they hadn't seen him in a while. When people asked Moore where Shakespeare was, she gave various excuses, saying he was laying low, traveling, on vacation, or on a cruise. As the concerns grew, one of Shakespeare's cousins filed a missing person report. Dee Dee Moore quickly came under police suspicion, and with cell phone records and surveillance, they were able to determine very quickly that she was involved in Abraham's disappearance. Dee Dee started to become desperate. She confided in Abraham's old boss, Greg Smith. She asked him to do something extremely suspicious. She asked him to call Abraham's mother and pretend to be him on the phone to assure her that Abraham was alive and well. Greg went along with this because he believed Dee Dee's story that Abraham was just traveling and wanted to stay hidden. One day, Dee Dee visited Abraham's mother, Elizabeth, and took her to a bar. She wanted to comfort her and assure her that Abraham was doing well. As they talked, a call suddenly came through. Dee Dee urged Elizabeth to answer, saying it might be Abraham. Hoping to hear her son's voice, Elizabeth picked up the phone. On the other end was a man claiming to be Abraham. She truly believed she was speaking to her son, unaware that it was actually Greg Smith, following Dee Dee's instructions to make this fake phone call. Dee Dee was also sending text messages from Abraham's phone pretending to be him to convince people he was alive. But the police were watching her closely. They noticed that she was spending time with Greg and decided to talk to him to figure out what was going on. When the police told Greg they believed Dee Dee was involved in Abraham's disappearance, he was shocked. He agreed to help them and became a police informant. From that moment, Greg secretly recorded every conversation he had with Dee Dee. What Greg discovered was shocking. Dee Dee first accused a man named Ronald, claiming he was the one who killed Abraham. Then she came up with a twisted plan. She wanted Greg to help her find someone who was already facing a long prison sentence and pay them to take the blame for Abraham's murder. She even handed Greg the gun she claimed was used to kill Abraham. She instructed him to give it to the person who would take the fall. But the police were one step ahead. They set up a sting operation using an undercover officer to pose as the fall guy. Dee Dee had no idea she was walking straight into their trap. They instructed Greg to ask Dee Dee to show him where Abraham's body was buried. Believing she was in control, Dee Dee led him straight to the exact spot. Abraham was buried under a concrete slab in her own backyard. On January 25, 2010, police dug up the backyard and found Abraham's body. He had been shot twice in the chest and buried under a cement. This is all the proof they needed. They had the murder weapon and Abraham's body. Dee Dee Moore was arrested. Her lies and tricks were finally over. At Dee Dee's trial, as always, she told different stories and blamed different people. She even tried to put the blame on her own son, but the evidence was clear. She was found guilty of Abraham's murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Dee Dee Moore continues to deny any involvement in Abraham Shakespeare's murder. Question: which approach do you think will lead to greater happiness and success in your life, being more selfish or being more generous? This story is so tragic, and it reminds us how money can really be the root of so much evil. Abraham seemed like a kind and trusting man, and it cost him his life. If you are fortunate enough to win the lottery, please be vigilant and protect yourself. Don't be afraid to say no sometimes. And in a bizarre twist, years later, after Abraham's death, one of his ex-girlfriends won her own $1 million lottery prize. Let's hope she learned from his story and protected herself. Abraham Shakespeare was only 42 years old when he was killed. May his soul rest in peace.